Hey everyone. Yeah, this is a bit of a live response. This is a bit of a live response to, well, earlier today, the Schlag Daddy, Jeff Siegel at OTRS Central, posted his G1 USA Night 2 review. And one of the things he had told people in the description when he had posted this, especially here on Twitter and other social media, was to basically get the flaming keyboard's fingers ready for what he was about to say. And trust me, I don't think a lot of people, particularly probably thrilled with what he has to say. But you know what? He's not alone in this. He really isn't. There are a lot of people that particularly do not like um, what the Young Bucks do. There's not a lot of people that like him. Hold on for a sec. Like I said, there's not a lot of people that like what the Young Bucks do. Um, they're just like Jeff. They're not too fond of him. Um, and one person can't really blame anybody like Jeff for not liking him or anybody else not liking him. Um, I think basically the problem with the Young Bucks here is that they don't they don't bring substance to their matches. In other words, they more or less depend on the flips and kicks, if you will, that a lot of people say is not necessary unless they're say for big spots, or unless you're in a division like the cruiserweight or X division where it's almost required that you have to do it. Now, there are some people though that like the Young Bucks. And it's not because they like them for all the spin and kicks and all that they do, or the flips and kicks, I should say, that they do. They like the Young Bucks due to the fact that, well, they're having fun, is what they're doing. They are hashtag making wrestling fun in their own way. And true, that may be irritating to a lot of people, but if it's what makes this business, this sport for them, this sports entertainment venture fun for the Young Bucks and anybody else that'll like them, then who are we to judge them for that, right? I mean, we may not like essentially the fact that every match is almost the same with them. Almost every match is basically Meltzer driver, super kick, super kick, super kick, you know, spike tombstone, you name it. We may not be particularly too fond of that, and that might be the case here. But when one thinks about it with the Young Bucks, hold on for a sec. Like I said, when one thinks about it with the Young Bucks, one has to also realize that the Young Bucks are probably not the only ones that do this. They are probably not. I mean, when you think about it, the Young Bucks are probably among many that do this. One name that can come to mind, one one name that can come to mind, folks. So, like I said, one name that could come to mind. One name that could come to mind is Ricochet. Another could be Real Osprey. You know, a lot of people may not agree with what these guys do at times, but if it's what gets them over, it gets them over. Am I right? You know, like I said, if it gets them over, it gets them over. You know, it's kind of like with someone like AJ Styles. AJ used to depend on the flips and kicks himself too, but and as time went on, he became more rounded to the point that he's become who he is today. But here's the thing with the Young Bucks: do they suck? For mainly depending on what Jeff says and many others may say, is the flips and the kicks and the super kicks and the Meltzer drivers and the spiked tombstones and all that? Or are these guys smarter than we give them credit for? Well, let's take a look at this, shall we? Let's take a look as to why people would consider them the Bucks of suck. Okay? Let's take a look at that. Some people would consider them the Bucks of suck due to the fact that mainly all their matches are the same. Even if they add in a stipulation like a ladder match or a full metal mayhem match or steel cage or whatever, 8-man tag, 6-man tag, 10-man tag. It's almost like every match, depending on the variation of match they can be in or stipulation of match they can be in, is always about the same. It's never changed. The only difference sometimes you have different elements involved, sometimes different participants or different objects that can be utilized to to your advantage or your disadvantage. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Even though many would consider them the not worthy of being acknowledged as probably one of the greatest tag teams outside of WWE today, even though many feel that they don't deserve those accolades and that they still have a lot to learn, here's why they may be smarter than they look. Okay? The Young Bucks may be smarter than they look from a business standpoint because they realize that if they were to go to WWE, because I want you to notice one thing, they could have easily been signed to WWE long ago and probably by now, not just on their name alone, but on what they could do in the ring, they could probably by now, under the WWE umbrella and under WWE's tutelage, probably be this not on their name alone, but on what they've been able to do outside of WWE and what they've been able to learn within WWE. They might have well been by now at least one-time tag team champions on Raw or SmackDown, NXT, or before the WWE draft last year, tag team champs of the whole company. They could have been just once had they signed with WWE long ago. And through a hybrid of what they do and what they learned from WWE, probably could have become champions. But here's where that smarter than we give them credit for comes in. They realize that if they go to WWE, and eventually, let's be honest, they know someday they're going to end up there. They know that. But here's the thing. This is where that whole smarter than we give them credit for comes in. They realize that if they sign with World Wrestling Entertainment, Triple H, Triple H, and others in charge of the Performance Center, where they're going to end up first, they're going to be on them to tone down the whole flips and kicks kind of deal. They're going to be on them to tone down the Meltzer driver. They're going to be on them to tone down the spike tombstone, the flips, the super kicks. They might even go as far as to say you need to come up with a new finisher instead of the super kick because, oh, guess what? That's already well known by somebody in this company who's a legend, who's a Hall of Famer. And in fact, it's already been trademarked to said individual. So, so with that in mind, maybe they're smarter than we think. Maybe they're smarter than we give them credit for because they realize if they end up there, and again, like I said, I got a feeling they probably know they're going to end up there sooner than they think. They realize that they're going to have to change up the whole offensive repertoire, the whole style almost. Or in other words, they're going to have to hybrid it together to where it's kind of what people recognize. It's what people recognize from the time in the Indies and in Japan, but it's also now a hybrid of what they're learning from the WWE. And maybe by being smarter than we give them credit for, they realize they're not ready for a change like that. They're not ready for a massive change of that magnitude to happen to them. Maybe they're not ready for that. Maybe they're waiting things out. Maybe they're waiting for WWE to go through a change of management, if you know what I mean, before signing on. Because maybe they feel that with the right people in charge up in Connecticut, they'll be able to do what they want on just as they'll be able to, well, they'll basically be able to do the same things that they've done here in Japan and in ROH, PWG, the Indies, you name it. They'll be able to do that in WWE under the right management. But right now, I think they're kind of worried that if they go up there, let's say today, and become part of and sign with WWE, that what they're used to doing and what fans are used to seeing them doing is it's going to be for naught. It's going to be completely different. It's going to be a huge change. They might be lucky if they'll be able to, let's say, have a few of the moves that people know them for on the Indies utilized up there for them to do. But they also realize, like I said, they're going to have to go through a massive change and almost hybrid their style with what the style the WWE wants. And again, I don't think they're ready for that. I think another thing that they're worried about is the fact that since we got the Hardys up there too, and let's say they were to go there right now, that they may have to change their names. They may have to change their name to maybe what they had in TNA called Generation Next or whatever. Or they're afraid they might be looked at as being, or maybe they're worried that if they go up there now, that one of the changes will be, oh, let's make you a tag team from the future. Let's put you in space outfits, stuff like that. So I think this is where that smarter than we give them credit for comes in. Right now, they're making a living doing what they're doing on the Indies, in Japan, in Ring of Honor, PWG, you name it. And they're not having to worry about people holding them down or having them change their style or hybrid the style to mesh with the style they want, or changing them up to where even though people know who they are, um, they're trying to showcase them as somebody different. And again, maybe they're not ready for that. Maybe they're not prepared for that. And if they are, maybe they're waiting, like I said, for a changing of the guard. Because they know, as well as anybody else knows, that the person that really has the final say when talent is signed is Vince McMahon, and maybe they're worried he's going to want to do things with their tag team that they're not crazy about. They're not crazy about. I mean, again, that's where the smarter than you give them credit for option comes in. That they're smarter than we give them credit for. Maybe they realize that's not what they want to do just yet because of who's in charge. Now, you might say, well, now for those that still think the Young Bucks suck because they only do. Bleh. Okay, what I'm saying is for those that still think the Young Bucks suck because they depend on is flips and kicks and all that. Um, you have a right to feel that way. There's no doubt because you feel that they can do so much more if they just start applying it. And you're right. They should be able to do a lot more with what they have. They should be able to put on some compelling matches. They should be able to do some technical wrestling in that ring against whoever they face. But here's the thing. We are in a day and age now to where it doesn't matter if you're a if you're a technical mat wrestling uh, genius. Doesn't matter if you can have a classic 30-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute match without doing a high flying move. You know, it doesn't matter if you can go an hour or so, without doing a high flying flip or kick or whatever, super kick or whatever, in a submission style kind of environment. Today we are in an atmosphere to where it's how do I put this? It's what you can do it's what you how do I put this? Basically, it's more about the moment, if you will, especially if you wrestle on the indies in Japan, Ring of Honor, PWG, whatever. It's about being in the moment. And for the young Bucks, they probably feel that doing all these flips and kicks, the Meltzer driver, the spike tombstone, you name it, the no selling, what have you, that's being in the moment. And they going back to probably being smarter than we give them credit for, realize that there's a lot of fans out there that buy into it. And why? Because a lot of these fans that are into the flips and the kicks, that are into the no selling, are obviously fans that saw this in the MMA world. Because one thing I've always talked about at times, and I'm sure anybody else may or may not agree with this, is in the MM is ever since UFC and even Bellator, basically MMA has come into its own. It's because of that style that they showcased at times where it's basically that no selling, that mat wrestling clinic, sometimes flips and kicks kind of deal that they would do for some of their matches. Basically, fans have become basically a lot of wrestling promotions from Ring of Honor, PWG, the indie promotions out there and somewhat in Japan have adapted that philosophy and have adapted that philosophy into the company and into the matches or into the company, that a lot of the stars have decided to adapt that into their matches as well because they realize, hey, fans like this, let's give it to them. And again, it's not just maybe the wrestlers that are doing it because fans and it's not just because wrestlers are doing it because they want to get fans off their feet right away. It's basically because they see that fans enjoy having they see that the fans that have enjoyed it are the same kind of fans that will tune into a UFC fight or a Bellator fight and see a similar style at times. I know that sounds complex, but let's be honest. Ever since UFC came into its own, what did Ring of Honor do? It started doing similar styles. It was a hybrid of what you saw in MMA and the high flying. And basically, that became what the style of wrestling fans became accustomed to nowadays on the indies, in Ring of Honor, in TNA slash Impact Wrestling slash GFW, in CZW, PWG, the indie, Japan, because one or two or several wrestling promotions decided to hybrid the style of what was used in mixed martial arts into wrestling and basically influence the stars to do so. That's why you have fans appreciating what they're getting. They want more of it. And it doesn't, and when fans see a certain superstar go to WWE and they see them doing that same style in NXT, they're happy. They're like, yes, this is where they belong. Now they can showcase it to the world. But then what upsets them is when that same talent goes up to the main roster, they can't do as much as they used to, which is why a lot of fans are pissed at 205 because 205 should be showcasing these cruiserweights doing what they do best, and that's the flips and kicks that a lot of people berate the Young Bucks for doing. And again, that's your right if you want to berate them because you feel they should be able to do more. And I agree. Matt and Nick Jackson should be able to do more in that ring besides super kicks, Meltzer drivers, and such. They should be able to do more than that. They should be able to go out and tell spectacular matches, put on wrestling clinics if they want to. But again, Matt and Nick are basically doing what, ironically, Schleg Daddy, you have suggested a lot of people do. And that's make wrestling fun again. And they're doing it, I guess, in their own way, whether you like it or you don't. I mean, not a lot of people are going to like it. Not a lot of people are going to appreciate the flips and kicks. Not a lot of people are going to appreciate the fact that in their eyes, just like you, that Matt and Nick are exposing the business. Not a lot of people are going to appreciate that, and that's true. If you want to if you want to keep any kind of realism with pro wrestling, you gotta at least show some kind of you gotta show some kind of effect from a move. You can't just say, okay, you're gonna take a Meltzer driver off the top rope, and then you all of a sudden you kick out of it, and then you bounce back up like nothing affected you. No, you need to basically sell it. It's like if it's like uh, let's say uh, War Machine. Let's say War Machine. One of the members of War Machine power slammed Jackson off the top of a ladder. Nick Jackson would have to sell that. Nick Jackson, as people would complain, I'm trying to say, instead of selling that and allowing himself to maybe be pinned in and lose the match for his team, Nick Jackson would kick out, bounce back up, and hit a super kick like nothing happened. And what he would have to do, honestly, to prove people wrong is if he gets hit, let's say, with a power slam by Hanson of War Machine off the top of a ladder, instead of kicking out of it and then bouncing back up and hitting a super kick, he would have to lay there and sell the effect. Sell it to the point that, let's say it's an elimination match, he allows himself to get eliminated. That is what fans want. That I can understand why fans feel the Young Bucks suck, because they're not giving them what they want. They're not giving them basically wrestling 101, which is you gotta tell a story. You gotta sell the effects of a move. You can't just bounce up and say nothing happened and act like nothing happened. So I completely agree with those that feel that way, that yes, the Young Bucks need to basically start selling an effect of a move instead of bouncing back up. Because I can understand fans' frustrations. They don't like the fact that the Young Bucks are making a mockery because nothing's really hurting them. It's like I said, someone could, let's say the Big Show. Let's say the Big Show was to enter Ring of Honor, which would be a surprise. Big Show would lift both of them up for a choke slam. In WWE, they would have to sell that. They would have to sell a double chokeslam into a double pin by Big Show, right? But if Big Show was to do that to them in Ring of Honor, what happens? They kick out. They kind of sell it just for a tiny bit. Then they bounce back up, hit a double super kick, and act like nothing happened. And people don't like that. They don't. They don't like it whatsoever, and it pisses them off. So again, I can understand that frustration. So yes, I agree. Matt and Nick Jackson need to start selling more. They need to start selling the legitimacy of the maneuver. They need to start going out there and helping to tell a story instead of just going out there and acting like everything's like nothing's going to affect them, even though they may get the crap beat out of them for at least 20, 30, 40 minutes. But again, going back to the other side of things, this again may be smarter than this may be where they are smarter than we give them credit for. Because maybe they realize that we, as the fans, know that wrestling stage. We know it's a work. We know it's rehearsed. We know it's planned out and everything. Maybe they realize that and they're saying, you know what? We're not going to insult these fans. Maybe they're smart enough to realize, hey, let's not insult these fans. They know it's a work. They know it's predetermined. They know it's planned out. Let's just go out there and have fun. Let's just go out there and have fun. And hey, if we end up exposing the business in the eyes of some fans, in the eyes of many, okay, fine. Okay, that's fine because they already know it's a fake. They already know it's pre-planned. And again, maybe that's where they're smarter than we give them credit for because they realize that we, as fans, already acknowledge that pro wrestling, sports entertainment is predetermined, that it's pre-planned, that finishes to the end, that results and outcomes of certain matches are already planned out and ready to go. Maybe they realize that, and maybe that's why they do these things the way they do, and maybe that's why they do the things they do. Maybe that's why they do the spots fest as that they do. Maybe that's why they did their own. They're doing their own YouTube channel, The Elite, which is called The Elite. Maybe they acknowledge and they're playing to the fact that we know that it's a work, and they're just having fun with it. Yes, there will be occasions where they'll be told, probably, okay, you got to put this team over and probably lose your junior tag team titles or your Ring of Honor tag team titles, and they'll be cool with it, as long as in the end they'll be allowed to go out there and put on a match that at least they realize in defeat they're acknowledging to the fans that, hey, we know it's a work. We know it's pre-planned. So we're just going to go out there and have fun, give you possibly a match of the year candidate in their minds, and there you go. But again, the way I look at it, we could have our opinions about the Young Bucks. We can say they suck because of what they do, because they only depend on flips and kicks and Meltzer drivers and all that. But we can also probably acknowledge that they're smarter than we give them credit for, because maybe they realize that we're in a day and age where fans pay more attention to that. And maybe they realize that we as fans are already acknowledging that we know pro wrestling's a work, that pro wrestling's predetermined, pre-planned, and all they're doing is exactly what Schleg Daddy you have said. They're making wrestling fun, and they're doing it in their own way. Maybe it's not the way you would agree with, I would agree with, the Lex Man would agree with, Brian Alvarez would agree with, or anybody else. But gotta give them credit. Maybe they're just making wrestling fun, and maybe that's why they act the way they do and perform the way they do. But yeah, it's totally your opinion, folks. Do you think the Young Bucks are the Bucks that suck because all they depend on is flips and kicks and Meltzer drivers and all that? Or do you agree that they're smarter than we give them credit for, and that they realize that doing what they do in the ring, is not getting just them over, but it's getting the fans on their feet. And maybe they also realize that fans already know wrestling's a work, that it's predetermined, pre-planned. Maybe that's why they're doing it. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Slick Daddy, for watching. If you took your time in watching this, Deluxe Man, and even you, the Young Bucks, if you guys watch, thank you for watching. It's just me discussing, how a lot of fans feel about it and just giving my opinion on it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, taking the time to watch live. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below.